Credit is also a different skill level. You need to understand how to use credit. I just know a lot of my peers and people that I grew up did not, we didn't prioritize financial literacy. That the younger generations, they also need that education. So I went through a lot of heartache, in terms of like not having good credit. Without me having the education about how they were able to gain those things, I was going on a reckless journey. I think over time, like I found myself in a dark hole is because I got my role and now my whole financial journey started.
Hello and welcome back to Building Legacy with Nachie, a podcast where we have conversations with remarkable African Australians doing incredible things right here in the diaspora. Today, I am so honored to be joined with one of those such remarkable people. He is no other but Fabrice Omankoy.
Yeah.
Sweet. So I'll introduce Fabrice a little bit and then we'll go straight into the conversation. So Fabrice is a finance and banking expert. He's been in the industry over a decade. One of the main things that Fabrice is doing that really got me to bring him here is the Black Wealth Connect. So Black Wealth Connect is an Australian-based platform dedicated to elevating the current and next generation of African Australians professionals by uniting the community, bridging knowledge gaps, and empowering individuals. Their focus is on financial literacy and education, something I'm really interested and passionate about, leadership and mindset, creative arts, athletics, entrepreneurship, and philanthropy. The very first Black Wealth Connect seminar that I attended, oh my gosh, in 2023, I believe that was the very first and the first one I attended. It was such a breath of fresh air. The first time I entered, it was filled with Black people, just Black people. I think a few white people, but it was like Black people. I'm like, yes, for the very first time, I'm amongst my people. It's not a party, it's not a fanfare. It is professional, like a professional gathering with expert leaders, thought leaders, change makers, and it was amazing. So thank you so much, Fabrice, for joining me today.
I appreciate it.
I'm sure you guys are going to learn so much from the conversation today, so stay tuned with us. But Fabrice, before we go into deep dive into the conversation, what does legacy mean to you?
Before I get into that, I just want to say thank you so much for the for the invite. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to always come and share my story. So when people reach out to me, I'm always happy and I'm always inspired to share my story. So hopefully it inspires other people. So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
No, appreciate that. So legacy, right?
Yes.
So what it means for me?
Yes.
Look, legacy always means that, for me, it's what you choose to do in your life. Legacy for me is connected to your purpose.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to always find what your purpose is. And I think through your purpose is where you're able to build your legacy, because without you understanding almost like what you're here for, you need to establish what it is that you're here for, what your passion is, and what you feel like how you can impact the world. And through that is when the legacy starts. So finding your purpose is connected to legacy for me, and that's what it means to me.
Amazing. I think it syncs well with what the purpose of this podcast as well is, to throw light and shine light and celebrate the stories of African Australians that are doing, like I said, incredible things. There are so many of you, and I'm so honored when I get to speak with one of you, because there's so much into your story. So we'll deep dive into your story now. Fabrice.
Yeah.
What was young Fabrice like? Where did you grow up?
Before where it started, so my parents I'm originally from Congo. My parents migrated in the early, I think 80s or something like that.
Shout out to all the Congolese.
Shout out to all the Congolese. And when they came here, look, I arrived in Australia when I was 3 years old.
Okay.
I was always a very curious child. I always wanted to know how people were able to establish things. So as I started growing up, went into high school, I was very big in playing sports. I was a soccer fanatic. And through that, I think one amazing thing about playing sport is, as a child, it teaches you discipline. And through discipline is where I was able to, you know, that's where my curiosity sparked from. It's just like, okay, you know, I have coaches that are training me. I'm learning what it is to be on time, what it is to, you know, to train hard and all that. And when you carry those type of things, it also goes into your personal life when it comes to now building businesses and trying to establish things. So over time, as a child, I just became very curious. You know, my discipline in sport then led to, okay, how do people purchase things? You know, like, because I always saw going into my friend's house, they were able to buy amazing houses, nice cars and things like that. And I was always wondering how that was possible for people to own things. Yeah, these are some of my white friends that I played soccer with, you know. So I was always very curious, and I always used to come home and be like, oh, you know, they got a massive house. I'll come home. Not to say that my parents didn't do well, but it was always that you could see the difference, because I think their parents, obviously having been here for a very long time, they knew the system, they knew financial literacy, they understood how to establish things. So that's where my curiosity sparked from. And so yeah, over time it was just more about how was I able to establish things. And through my curiosity is when I then went into different parts of my life, where I got into banking, which eventually we'll talk about. But yeah, as a child, it was just more about discipline, curiosity, and finding my purpose when I was much younger. Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah. So I'm hearing that most of this financial curiosity and financial knowledge comes from your friends.
Yeah.
Did any of it come from your own experiences with family growing up?
Yeah, I think I learned a lot through my parents, just because my dad was somebody that was very good at, he's very good at business. Nice. And my mother is somebody that is very disciplined. So I think my father, you know, being very honest, did not have the discipline my mother had. So he understood business, he understood how to build businesses, he understood, okay, you know, we need to achieve these things. But obviously through business, right, you need to have certain things, like certain criteria. And not everybody, even though you might be a good business person, but you don't have everything within the business skill level, you know. So so I learned a lot through them. I learned a lot through my father, which was very, you know, business orientated, and my mother, which was very disciplined. So growing up, not really too much in financial literacy, but I took those kind of aspects from them.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's get into financial literacy.
Yeah.
How did that journey begin for you? From playing soccer with your friends, seeing them go into their mansions, big homes, and coming back to your... Yeah. All right, please.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So financial literacy started for me just based on like a lot of the mistakes that I was making in my life. Like I was very, you know, seeing what some of my friends had, I wanted to copy that. Do you know what I mean? So I saw them have nice cars, I saw them have nice houses, and without me having the education about how they were able to gain those things, I was going on a reckless journey to try and achieve those things. You know, I was buying nice cars. You know, I was taking out credit, mobile phones, you know, iPhone, they bring out a new phone every year. So now you're trying to keep up to the demands of the market because your friends have it. So I think over time, like I found myself in a dark hole because my credit became bad. You know, at school, they don't teach you about these things, you know, anything about financial literacy that doesn't belong in school. So you learn those things when you get out of school. So I went through a lot of heartache, you know, in terms of like not having good credit, not being able to buy things, and not understanding that these things affect you for almost 5 to 7 years. So really that's where a lot of my, you know, discipline came from. And then, well, not discipline, but that's where a lot of my issues came from, not understanding too much. But then over time, my mother always encouraged me to get into banking. She was very pushy, like you need to get into banking.
Why was that?
I think just because my sister was in banking at the time.
Okay.
And I think that, look, it's now when I think about it in hindsight, it was a beautiful thing, because once I was able to get into banking, which I know we'll talk about, that's when my financial literacy started to improve. And that's when I started to then connect the dots. Oh, I shouldn't have bought this, I shouldn't have done this, taking out a phone at an early age was wrong. I should have done it later on when I got it. So there was many things that I learned when I got into the banking phase because of my mother.
So did you at any point have conversations with your friends? seeing them buy new cars, phones? Do you have conversations where they were getting this money from, or financing all these?
Yeah, I mean, at that time we didn't have any education, you know. So a lot of the people that I was around, even though we were very determined, we were very motivated. You know, I had a very motivated circle. Everybody wanted to be inspired. Everybody wanted to become someone. You know what I mean? But I guess it was just more about trying to keep up to the demand of what everybody's seeing around them. People had nice cars. Okay, we're going to go out and try our best to get a nice car. We don't care how we do it. Even if we have to save, or we have to go out and get credit. But, you know, at the same time, credit is also a different skill level. You need to understand how to use credit. You got to understand that, like, you know, making these repayments, they're very important because they affect you over time. So I think that's where a lot of that, came from.
So when did you start working, and when did you start building that knowledge? I know Mom asked you to go into banking. Had you started working at the time?
So I was playing soccer. So soccer was mainly my...
How old were you then?
So during pretty much my whole childhood.
Okay.
So if I started playing soccer when I was 5 years old, and I probably stopped playing soccer when I was around 27.
Ooh.
Yeah, 27 to 26 years old.
At what time did you get into banking?
I was in banking when I was playing soccer.
Okay.
So so I would you know, do my whole 9 to 5, go train afterwards and stuff like that. But I stopped playing soccer at around 27. Got into banking probably around I would probably say around 20 years old. Yeah, so 20 years old is when I first got my role at NAB at a call center, and that's when my whole financial journey started. Yeah.
Can you talk us through that?
Yeah. So I would say that so eventually, once I finally listened to my mother, she's get into banking for very.
How long did it take?
She convinced me probably for a good maybe 2 to 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she really wanted me to get into that whole banking world, and eventually when I got into it, I started off at a call center. So I'll paint the whole picture. I didn't even really think that I would get the job.
Did you have any degree or any?
Nothing. You know, I think it was just. I think when you apply for a call center role, I think it's just about like your confidence, like your communication. You know, I thought that I had very poor communication, to be honest with you, but obviously, you know, they saw something in me when I went for the job interview. So I went for the job interview. It was 3 stages. I remember the 3rd stage when I was leaving. So I got to the 3rd stage, which is over 1 week. The 3rd stage when I was leaving the job interview, on the way back, I got a phone call and they're like, "You got the job." I was so like.
Was that your first main?
That was my first main professional job. The beautiful thing about like whenever it comes to call center, it's just more about if they can see something within you, you know. And obviously I was always very like ambitious. I was always a very motivated, curious child, and I think that came across in the interview. So when I secured that, I started working there. I worked there for about 1.5 years, and I'll tell you honestly, that is probably the best stages of my life.
That's where you learned a lot of.
I've learned everything. I would always say to any person or any child that has left high school that's going into a work field, I think customer service is something that really teaches you how to talk to people, how to manage your emotions, because you're dealing with people that obviously are going through financial hardship, things like that. So you learn how to do all that stuff. So once I was able to take my discipline into sport, but also know how to communicate, that's when I started seeing things in my life started to change. Yeah.
At this point, did you have any like mentors you were looking up to either at work or?
Yeah, a very good question. So look, I always looked up to my father. Like I think my father was a very good business person, very motivated. So and he was a very good speaker. Very good speaker, my father. My father could sell water to a whale. He's a very, and I think we kind of have the same.
He has a sweet mouth.
Yeah. So we kind of have the same. I think I get that from my father, where I'm able to communicate quite well. People say that, not me, but so that's who I was looking up to when I was growing up in terms of like his communication style, business acumen, stuff like that. Just the way he was able to build businesses and things. And also people just around at work that had faith in me, you know. As you start to, you know, go into different phases of your life, there's always going to be people that you find. So I had some of my team leaders, I had some of my peers that used to work with me that I looked up to. They had a lot of faith in what I was doing and how I was able to communicate. So different people at different stages of my life. And I had a very good circle. Let me not eliminate them, because we didn't drink. We didn't do anything bad. Everybody around me was always very sport disciplined, very, driven to become successful. So that was my circle of people around me all the time. Yeah. Yeah.
So aside from the communication confidence, what else did the call center teach you about finance?
It taught me about financial literacy. It taught me about understanding how to manage money, because I was able to look at people's accounts. I was able to see how they were able to manage money, how to set up direct debits, how to use if you apply for a credit card, how to use it properly. If you have a home loan, how to pay off your home loan much quicker.
All of this in the
call center, because you go into strategy sessions in the call center. So for example, if the bank is doing a policy update, everybody is in a room learning about the updates. So over time, you're not just in the call center, but you're in the world of finance. They're teaching you how to really manage things, So for example, if somebody's going through hardship, how do you deal with somebody's hardship? How are you able to set up things for them that can kind of take them out of hardship? How people are able to handle, everything within finance. So you really learn all aspects of finance, but the main thing you learn is how to communicate. And that is very important, yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So at that point, did you realize some of the mistakes you had been making, or had you realized?
100%. 100%.
And how were you mentoring yourself and to come out of that?
Yeah.
As you're talking to people that are going through financial hardships, you're also recognizing yourself. In their stories.
Well, I think definitely, because when I was speaking to people, like you always come across people that are going through the same situations as you, but obviously we suffer in silence sometimes, which I've learned over the years. Like we shouldn't, right? I think that it's very important, if you are going through something, to reach out to the right people, and because there's always somebody that can get you out of a situation, because a lot of people have been in the same situation as you. You know what I mean? So it's very important to find those mentors, find those people that that can guide you out of situations that you feel like you can't get out of. So in the call center, so I definitely aligned with a lot of people, because a lot of people were obviously bought cars, fall into hardship, not understanding how to make those payments and not making those payments on time. So it taught me that banking is about trust. So financial literacy is about trust. So big corporations, what they do is they basically trust you when they lend you money, right? So it's the same way that me and you, we know people that we won't lend money to. There's some people that can call us and they could swear on everything they're going to give us the money next week. We won't trust them, right? But then there's certain people that we know in our life that if they call up today and they need something,
and you didn't even have it, you would be willing to.
You'd be willing to do exactly. You will go out of your way to do it, and that's how the whole banking system works. It's about trust. So if they see, and it's all based on credit score, right? So if you have a very good credit score, which is generally in Australia anything above 700.
What's the max?
So the maximum, it goes up to like 1,050.
Okay.
So I've seen people that are quite close to 1,050, but so that's over time, when you've built a good you're showing the banking systems that you're able to make repayments on time. So so that's how it works. So that's a lot of the stuff that I had learned. So over time, when I started seeing from my experience that the bank was losing trust in me, right? Because I was not making my repayments in time, I was not doing all these things. That's what ultimately was affecting me from moving forward in life. And I wouldn't have known that if I wasn't in the call center.
Yeah. So how did you apply this in your own personal life? What kind of changes did you start making?
Yeah, well, first of all, I got rid of all my bad debt. So, like my credit cards and stuff like that, my car loans, I just did everything in my power to get rid of them. I didn't apply for finance for probably like another 5 years. I was still young, 5 to 7 years. I didn't apply for anything. So if I wanted all these phones, I went out and bought them cash. Do you know what I mean? Outright. They probably weren't even that expensive at the time, but you just want them so quick. You don't want to be waiting a whole 2 weeks until your next pay. You just want to,
Patience.
Yeah, patience is key. Exactly. Yeah. So I just started making a lot of those changes in my life. I stopped applying for credit. I would just buy things, like I said, cash. Like if I needed a car, I would start off with a smaller car. Like, even if it means that I had to save 4,000, 5,000, I'll just buy that car. And generally that car will last me. It would take me to work. It would get me to the point where I'm able to save more money. And over time, when I started to see my credit score improve, because the banking taught me different apps that I could use to check and things like that.
What are some of the apps you can use?
So you can use Equifax. So Equifax is like one of the biggest credit or corporations, or they don't manage people's credit, but they're a company that specialize in measuring people's credit. Right? So that's apps that you can use.
Is that for free?
No, well, it depends on what plan. You can go with plans where they can kind of update you every month. So this is your
like
credit
a
score.
Of something.
No.
The more you're repaying debts and doing things financially, they're updating you for you to see the picture.
For you to see your picture. So if you go and apply for credit, so let's say within a month, so if you do something, you sign up a monthly subscription, they can just keep sending you your credit score every month, your credit report. So you can do things like that. That's how you stay on top of your credit. That's how you can find out if people are using your account fraudulent, things like that, because things happen. Obviously, you can imagine during COVID, a lot of people, ID got compromised and things like that. So,
people claiming.
Exactly. So it's very important. Yeah, it's very important to continue and keep up to your credit score. Yeah.
Sweet. So after NAB call center, where did you go to from there?
Yeah, so eventually, so 1.5 years, learned a lot in at that stage in NAB, and then eventually I moved on to other banking worlds like the Macquarie banks and things like that. So I was in Macquarie Bank doing home loans and home loans, understanding, just adding more to the skill level that I had already known. I just obviously wanted to, get more of understanding about finance as a whole. And then eventually I went into different departments like compliance and it's a lot of different departments in the financing world, because you just grow from there. After you learn the basics, you want to grow and continue to learn more stuff.
And still without a degree?
Still without a degree. No, I didn't learn anything. No, everything that I learned in my life was work experience.
Wow.
Yeah. So I personally don't feel as though, and look, I'm not trying to throw this out there, I think in life, when you put your mind to something, you can learn. I don't think that a degree is the only way. I think that if you're determined to become a mechanic, you hang around mechanics and eventually you will learn. If you want to learn about finance, you hang around the specialist and they will teach you.
Let's talk about Black Wealth Connect.
That's
How did that dream? Because I entered that seminar, I'm like, who came up with this? Who decided to unite all of us in this room? I'm hearing of Africans owning real estate, not just one real estate, but multiple real estate. It was amazing. How did you come up with Black Wealth Connect? Talk to me about where it started from.
Definitely. No, I appreciate it. And I'm so thankful that you came to the first one, because I think that was like the whole beginning of the vision,
I think it was Derek that shared the link, and I saw it. I'm like,
shout out to Derek.
Shout out to Derek. I've never seen something like this before, and I was just curious as to what to expect, because every large gathering I've attended in African, it's either like a party or like a gathering or a festive or something. I've never seen a gathering full of just Africans and young Africans that it's just professionally minded. And I was at that time more into finances, trying to figure out what to do with savings and stuff. So I entered that room, I'm like, ooh, the speakers. Ooh. Yeah, solid. Thank you so much for coming. So again, how did you come up with that?
Thank you for coming. Like I told you, that was the beginning of the vision, and when you came, you actually saw, you were there from the beginning. So I think you your word counts for, it counts a lot, because you were there and you saw it, how it transpired from the start. But ultimately, look, I think it really just started with everything that that we've just spoken about, like some of the financial hardships and things that I went through at a very young age, not understanding finance. And I think when I got to a stage in my life where I was exposed to being in the banking world and understanding how everything works, I just know a lot of my peers and people that I grew up did not we didn't prioritize financial literacy. And I know that the younger generation, because I was there at one stage, they also need that education because it's not taught in school. So what I started to do was I started to look at my life as a whole, and I'm just like, okay, what is my purpose right now? I have, I have all this experience now. I've been in, so this is me being in banking for over a decade at this point when I thought, what should I start? So I just put two and two together. I'm just like, okay, my purpose is to give back. Like I understand obviously how majority of things work in finance now. Not everything, but the stuff that I felt as though that I knew was enough to give back to my community. And one day I was just sitting down and I'm just like, look, I'm probably just going to start off by doing a podcast around financial literacy. I didn't know what it was going to become later on. Just the same way anybody starts anything, right? You start like a bread company. You don't know one day it's going to become Baker's Delight, right? You know what I mean? Like the person that started Baker's Delight did not think that, me making bread was going to turn into this multi-million-dollar franchise or whatever, So I just said to myself, okay, how can I give back? I was thinking to myself, I'm like, how can I give back? So eventually I just thought to myself, let me start off with a financial literacy podcast. People have always told me that I have a way of communicating, and I thought maybe I can apply that through podcasting, right? Yeah. So I thought about all the people that I know in banking that look like me, that are within in the African diaspora community, because I had those networks, right? And I just felt as though like we weren't getting represented enough. We would go to conferences all the time and we would see the main speakers speaking look nothing like us. But I knew there was people within my circle that has the ability to be on stage where they are. Yeah. So I just said, you know what? Okay, so moving forward, I was thinking of the name. And I was just like, okay, I was going to call it originally Black Wealth Australia. And then I was just like, and then I just thought to myself, if I want to make this like a global thing, Black Excellence global thing, I can't call it Black Wealth Australia because that way it will only sit in Australia. So then after that, I just thought to myself, okay, it took me a few more weeks, then I'm just like, okay, I'll come up with Black Wealth Connect. So originally when I started Black Wealth Connect, as I mentioned, I got Jesse. I think you know Jesse. Omankoy. Omankoy. Oh, you said his name better than me. cut that. But I don't have the Ghanaian accent. But so eventually I started the first episode with him. So when we launched the first episode, it just did very well. We put it on social media. It exploded.
And I'll say something about Jesse. That was the first time I'd seen him in a professional setting.
Oh, okay.
I've been seeing this guy at events and stuff, but I'd never even had in mind to talk to him professionally. Like I met so many Ghanaians there.
Exactly.
But we had never met at events where you would think, let's talk about work, or what you do, or what's your knowledge. So that was a good one.
Exactly. And the thing is, like, I know these people and how professional they really are and how good at what they do, the knowledge that they know, and I know that they don't pass it on to the community as much as they should, or they've just never been given that platform to do that, because these people do want to give back, but like I said, there was just no platform. So we shot a few episodes with Black Wealth Connect podcast, and after a while, I thought to myself, okay, let me try. I shot about 10 episodes or 11. Then I said to myself, let me try and see if I'm able to put together some sort of conference. Because I'm shooting all these things. People are, very receptive to it. Then eventually I'm just like, okay, Black Wealth Connect Summit. So I don't know, all these things were coming to me as time. You know what I mean? And I think as I started getting more into it, I started to feel the purpose more. And eventually, when I thought to myself how I'm going to put together this summit, I thought about it, and then I put together a team, and then eventually I had then thought about, okay, let me start it off in Sydney. I was living in Melbourne at the time, but
that's another thing. Why Sydney?
Because I grew up there, So I grew up there, and I had all my resources and my connections in Sydney. Yeah. So I said, let me start it off in Sydney and see how that goes. And then eventually that's how I started it. But what I want to say, which is very important, is like, I feel as though everything that you're trying to do that comes from your purpose, it comes organically. Yeah. It comes natural. I wasn't thinking so much, but I just felt as though this is my purpose and what can come out of it. And what I had found out later on is that there was a lot of people that wanted this information, but wasn't in the position to there wasn't an area or an event that they were able to go to. So after I created the Black Wealth Connect Summit, that's when people started to gravitate to it. Yeah.
And then we now have the Black Wealth Women's
Yeah,
Summit.
we now have the
attended my very first one. I can't wait to connect it.
Yeah,
Tell me about that as well.
The Women's Summit really came from doing the Black Wealth Connect Summit. I think that like it's always important to have something just for women, and I had spoken to a lot of different women about this, especially my wife and people that are in her circle, and then eventually we just thought to ourselves, okay, let's create something where it's just for women, because if you look at all these different brands in the world, they have things that cater a lot to women, you know, and I think that that's very important, because even when I went to the first Women's Summit, which launched last year, you know, we welcome guys too. It's not just a women's summit where it's just women. We welcome everyone there, but it's just, it was amazing. The speakers and all that are women. But the amazing thing that I found is that like I learned so much just being there from a guy and just watching the way women connect and the stuff that they talk about, because it's not just about financial literacy. They talk about everything.
Very deep.
It goes very deep. So it's such a beautiful conference.
By the time this recording will go out, it would have already happened. But next year.
Yeah, next year it's probably going to be on around the same time.
Around the same time, November.
But it's just beautiful to have something just for the women. Yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds good. What has been the feedback you've received from Black Wealth Summit, including mine? But what has been like the general feedback you've received from the community? Yeah,
I think the feedback from the community has been very very inspiring. You know, I think that's what keeps the summit going. I think just seeing the way people are able to gravitate to the actual day when they come there, the information that they're able to learn, and especially just seeing some of the younger generation come through and what they're learning. A lot of the feedback is around the fact that they're able to implement a lot of that stuff in their life, and there's purpose behind the summit. So they come there, they're able to learn, they're able to network, they're able to find people that look like them that are going through the same struggle. So, you know, some people might want to start a business, but they don't know how to start a business. But seeing somebody that looks like them that has started a similar business, they're able to get information from that person directly. So the feedback has really just been about networking, connecting, and the purpose of the event really connects to them.
That's so good. Yeah. That is so good. When you think of Black Wealth Connect, what's like your long-term goal? Where do you see it in the next, say, 5-10 years?
Yeah, it's a very, very good question. I think that, look, we want to make it so it's a global event. You know, I think, thank God, like the brand itself has been able to, you know, sustain over a certain period of time. Because obviously when you start a business, it's always between the first 1 to 2 years, you start to test the market to see whether or not the demand is still there. But I think I'm grateful and I'm humbled that the community continues to support it. So I think in the next 5 to 10 years, I think the main thing for me is looking for ways to expand it. I want to create courses. So like financial literacy courses for the youth. I want to create board games. I want to create like as many things as I can to be able to support our community when it comes to financial literacy. It's very important to me, you know, like I'm very passionate about it, and I think that if it's something that can become a global thing, I think that like it's going to be something that can really help our community, you know, globally to be able to put financial literacy in the forefront, because it's very important. A lot of us struggle from it, and it's not even just our community, right? It's a lot of communities that suffer from this, and I think that if it can touch a lot of people around the world and encourage them to learn about financial education, that's really ultimately what I want Black Wealth Connect to become.
As you're speaking, I'm thinking of the younger generation. So people from year 10 to 12. Is that something you've thought about, how to reach them financially? Because I think financial literacy is one of the greatest assets or skills you have, knowledge to have, even before you step into uni. Because not everyone steps into uni or does tertiary education at all. So it's a good skill to have. before you finish high school and step into the real world.
Correct.
Before you start making decisions about loans, about tax, about superannuation. I remember the first, I was like, what is that?
Yeah, what is all this?
What is all this?
It's so overwhelming for a young child.
Oh, yeah. And especially in our community,
Yeah.
this is not things that are talked about. Money is not really...
It's taboo, right?
Like talking about your salary, talking about your money, about how you're climbing the corporate ladder. It's
Correct.
like, oh,
Yeah.
have you thought about how you can reach that younger generation in terms of like smaller things like budgeting, accounting, and understanding income and expenses, and how they can like put those two and two together before they start thinking about the big things, about businesses and
no, definitely. I think that one thing that I mainly focus on is connecting with these youth organizations.
Okay.
Because that's very important, right? Like I think that there's so many youth organizations in Australia, and we work very closely with a lot of youth organizations. Even for the Women's Summit and a lot of our conferences, we give back too. So we give back, tickets, and we give back, the opportunity for people to come to these summits and learn about, financial literacy. But the main thing also is that, connecting with these younger generation and these youth organizations, what's really good is because they already have existing programs, and which is amazing, right? Because they're also finding the importance of the education around money. So they have existing programs. So what we will do as Black Wealth Connectors, we'll come in and see how we're able to facilitate them or how we're able to add on to their program. So that's how we've been able to tap into the generation around the year 11, year 12, year 10. And we're trying to look for ways to get it where, we can start from year 7 and hopefully, even at an earlier stage than that. So really the key is just finding these major organizations that are doing youth programs and being able to facilitate them. And even going into, there's obviously a lot of crime that's happening now in Australia. So even being able to go into some of the jails, some of the, just anything that can really help. Because I think that once you get a level of exposure around that stuff, and it's not just about the expensive cars, I want to make that clear. It's not about the mansions, it's not about that. It's just understanding the basic fundamentals. Like you mentioned, budgeting, because budgeting is very important. If you're in year 6 and you go into year 7 and you slowly start to go, make your way to year 12, if you're able to learn the basic fundamentals of budgeting, how to put money aside, how to, when you get your first job, how to start using your money and things like that. I think these skills eventually, over time, will turn into something where it becomes like something that it becomes disciplined. Like, you become disciplined around it.
It becomes like a natural thing.
A natural thing, You're not struggling to find that,
Now, in all our conversation, all I've kept hearing is network and your circle and all of that. How has that helped you in terms of like where you're at now?
It's very important, right? Because you become who you hang around. That's just, I know it's said quite often, and but I think that's very important, because who you surround yourself with is eventually like where you're going to get information from, where your habits are going to come from. Your association, like if you're just around people that always want to go out and spend money and go clubbing, like you said, you're always going to find yourself in those environments. So I think that being around people that have almost the same vision as you, so if you're somebody that believes in business or believes in understanding how the world works, economy, science, whatever, you need to hang around people that have similar beliefs to you. And I think that's where financial literacy and all that comes from, because if you're around people that are starting businesses, not even just starting businesses, but people that know how to manage their money, save their money, you have money conversations, because, especially within our community, we don't talk about money, as you said. So being able to have those, those dialogues around people that you're around, you'll find yourself over time being in a very good position. So I think it's very important. Like your association is very important to who eventually you become in life.
Yeah. And when you started the podcast, those are the people that helped you.
Those are the people that helped me build, those are the people that had the same vision as me. They know about they know about financial literacy. They've gone through their struggles. They've gone through everything that they've gone through in their life. And I think that's ultimately what helps you build anything in your life when you are surrounded by the right people. And over time too, especially even when you're starting things, you're going to need these people in your life. I think that sometimes we take that for granted. Like the ability to be able to call somebody that can give you some advice.
So good.
It's very important.
So good.
If you're around people that you tend to be doing things that are not good, like you just going clubbing or whatever, when things get difficult in life, you can't necessarily call those people because they don't necessarily have the answers to be able to facilitate that. But when you're going through something in life and you have people that are disciplined around you, ultimately it makes a very, very big difference in the communication that you have.
Easy.
100%.
I've come to believe that the people around you are like number one currency aside from
100%.
Your relationships, your network. I had this thing in my head this week. Since last week, and I called a friend and presented it to her, and the ideas I started getting from her, I've moved from just thinking about it to now like the initial implementation stage. Correct. And it took bringing in someone and bringing in someone of a similar mindset. So I really believe in having that network around you
makes a massive difference.
Makes a massive difference. Something it would have taken like years to accomplish. End up taking like days or a few hours.
But I always will say that I know that like growing up too, when you're very young, like it sometimes it takes time for you to find those people, and I want to make that clear. I don't think that from year 6 you're hanging around an entrepreneur at 60. From year 6, let's be clear about that. I think I think that's very important because it did take me, because I want to be realistic. It took me a very long time. Even though I hung around people that were not drinking, that were not, like I said, we were always very determined. We took care of our fitness. We were very determined, right? But it ultimately, like some of those peers too, are not going to be people that eventually in your life are going to be in your circle. That needs to be very clear. So to a young person that's watching this, I also want to be clear that it sometimes it takes a bit of time for you to find your circle. That's very important. It's taken me a very long time because, you start to achieve things, you start to move around, you start to travel, you start to associate yourself in different circles as things grow. Like, so for example, if you start a new job, you're going to be around different people. If you start to play sport, you're going to be around different people. You just need to know who it is that you feel like you want to stay connected to. And who, it's all gut feeling.
Sort of like seasons.
It's different seasons,
different
exactly.
Seasons, different people, and all of them come with their pros and cons.
Exactly.
And it's like a tree. And this analogy was made by Tyler Perry.
Yeah, please.
You've got the seeds, you've got the leaves, you've got the branches, the roots, and you've got the bark, and you've got the fruits, like different types of different aspects of the tree, but you've got the roots. Some people are there with you for life.
For fact.
And those people are few.
And
then you've got the leaves. There are just many of them, and they are seasonal. In autumn, they're blooming. Is it autumn or spring? Whichever season it is.
I don't even know the seasons. Don't worry.
And then in other seasons, they fall off because their time with you is over.
Exactly.
And you have to understand. You have to understand and let go, because there's new leaves coming, and they're coming in a different season to shine light on you, to bring you different fruits.
Exactly.
So that's what I'm sort of hearing from you, that appreciate the people that come into your life, but then accept that some of them too are not going to stay.
I'm not going to stay there for the whole time, because even just to give you a perfect example, I've been in Melbourne for nearly 7 to 8 years now. Everything that I've achieved in Melbourne has been absolutely phenomenal. If I look at my life in Sydney versus Melbourne, and all the stuff that I've been able to achieve in the 8 years that I've been in Melbourne, Black Wealth Connect was born when I was in Melbourne. So I put myself, and I'm not trying to say, Sydney or Melbourne, but I'm just trying to say that if I was in Sydney, I would have had a whole different mindset. I would have been around different people. Coming to Melbourne and feeling that discomfort of not knowing too many people around here, just having my mum here, having to navigate my way in life again, having to find new people, that has ultimately made me find my purpose quicker, because I was able to connect with certain people.
Putting yourself out there.
Putting myself out there. I was forced to put myself out there. I was forced to know, okay, where's everybody at? Like, what's happening? Who it is, who it is that I can associate myself with. And because I was at a different stage of my life, I was able to get to a point where I only wanted certain people in my life. So it was easier for me to be like, okay, I'm gonna stay with this person. I'm not gonna stay with this person. Oh, this person's like this person like this. It's just part of your when you grow up. And so I think that really made a massive impact, my ability to move and make myself, not comfortable, and then find my purpose again. So I also encourage that too. If somebody feels like they're stagnant, or they feel like they're not really progressing where they are in life, sometimes it's very good to move and put yourself in a position where you have to find your purpose again. I think it's very important.
I resonate with that so much.
I know.
I feel like you are talking about me, because that's how I feel. Like again, not to say Sydney
no.
It had its pros.
It's a whole different mentality. It's a different mentality. Yeah.
But I've been in Melbourne for just 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
But it's been, again, the kind of people you're forced to get to know
get
people,
to know
because you're new. Like if you stay at home, you wouldn't know anyone. So you're forced to make those connections.
Exactly.
So if you were mentoring someone younger than you, what would be something you would want them to take away? Say you had someone you were mentoring for maybe 6 months or 1 year. What are those key things you want them to take away from that conversation or that association with you?
Yeah, I think that what's important is some of the stuff that we've spoken about today, especially your circle. I think that that's very important. If you're young, start to choose your circle wisely, who you associate yourself with, and who you can see yourself, growing up with, and the type of things that you want for yourself, which is very important. Also understanding the fundamentals of financial literacy, the basics, understanding, when you start a job, how to put aside money, because everything starts to become second nature when you start implementing it in your life much earlier. So I think that's very important. And also just have fun, like I don't think that every life should be too serious,
Too serious.
Yeah, don't be too serious, don't be too hard on yourself. I know that we talk about financial literacy, whatever, but at the same time too, it's also important that you enjoy your life. You travel, you do all these things, because I got a lot of stuff out of my system very early in my life, and if I feel as though if I didn't do a lot of the stuff that I did when I was much younger, like the going out, even though I was very disciplined playing soccer and doing things like that, but it's also important to have fun. If I didn't do a lot of that stuff in my life, because you tend to find sometimes people want to have fun later on in life, because you need to get all that stuff out of your system. So that's all I have to say, especially to younger people. Have fun, enjoy your life, but also make sure that you are implementing things that are quite disciplined in when you're having fun. So that's really the key thing. So it's just, your circle, having fun, and also just making sure that you just know the fundamentals when it comes to financial literacy. Also, one thing I want to say that's very important too is that, like, with the Black Wealth Connect Summit and the Black Wealth Connect brand, I think one thing that is very important is that we don't just talk about financial literacy, right? Because I think there's so much more to just financial literacy. I think the importance of well-being, and also we talk about generational trauma, because there's the mindset and all that. It plays a very big part in how you're able to manage your life and how you're able to manage your finances as a whole. Because if you're just somebody that is thinking a certain way, and not to say that you can't break out of these habits, but if you're just thinking a certain way, sometimes you're not thinking that way because it's coming from you, but it's coming from your experience that you've had growing up in your household. So we really tap into things like that when it comes to the Black Wealth Connect Summit. We start from the bottom. A lot of our panel discussions and all that are really focused on generational trauma, mindset, mental health, and then eventually over time during the day in the summit, that's when we start to talk about money, because it's unpacking. It's not important. It's very important, because I've gone to a lot of conferences where everything's just straight away about money. It's not always about money. It's about your mindset and your well-being. So I wanted to make that clear, that I think that's one of the main focuses on, especially if you feel like you're going through something, you're never going to be good with money and the way you manage things. You need to focus on yourself, focus on your health, focus on taking care of yourself. Then eventually you can get into habits to build your financial literacy.
I think that process is really needed, and especially in our community, because we're coming with a lot of trauma, or sometimes you don't even I had this thing about getting rich or wealthy.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Oh, you did.
I'm like, I have this like love and hate relationship
Yeah.
with money,
Yeah.
which I'm still working on.
Okay, gotcha.
But again, it comes from like generational trauma that
Facts.
you don't realize, but it's been passed to you. Like
Yeah.
you've seen your parents struggle at some point in life, and so when you get an amount of money, you're sort of holding on to it.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
like, I don't want to lose it. I know what struggle
You
is
know what
like.
struggle.
But I say it's all about unlearning and relearning.
Yeah.
And so before we come to even talking about, like, if you met me and you wanted to talk to me about investing,
Yeah.
and I came with that mindset, you would have to start from somewhere.
Well, of course.
You cannot just come and sell investing to me.
Yeah.
That would be like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
you want me to throw away my 20,000?
Yeah, and it's overwhelming too, you know, like all this talk about like shares and all that, it's overwhelming, you know. And I think that, I think people will start things at a certain stage in their life when they're ready. That stuff can't be forced. You know, but it's just very important to be conscious of where you're at in your life and how the position that you're in, and you know, also being able to understand where you want to go. Because if you don't know where you want to go in life in terms of like, you know, financial well-being and things like that, then it's very difficult. Because some people just want a modest lifestyle, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some people just want to relax, chill, you know, they want to own their house and things like that, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because sometimes they're the richest people, you know. Chasing, peace of mind, chasing sometimes can also be, sometimes it could be detrimental, but like obviously, you know, you want to find your purpose and you want to try and achieve those things, but you also need to know when enough is enough, you know. You don't want to just keep going to the point where, because I think sometimes you can become unhappy and stuff like that. So trying to find that healthy balance.
I like the fact that you said to get to know the stage at which people are at, because people start things at this at different stages. But it's also important to sow seeds, because I remember my economics teacher, when I was in high school, say somewhere year 10, year 11, talked about shares and like becoming like a part owner of a company, and in my head I was like, what, that sounds fun, but
it sounds like a lot of responsibility.
But then when the season came in my life, which was like many years down the track, I felt comfortable to step into that. So I think seasons, but it's important again to sow seeds. And I have this question: if your mom did not force banking on you, what did young Fabrice want to be?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, I wanted to be a billionaire. You know, like I was doing. But I would have looked. I think that it's a very good question. I think that I inspired to. Well, my main goal was to become a professional soccer player. That's where
you actually look like an athlete.
You
look like a sports person.
I loved football I love football. Like when I was growing up, that was my passion. So my whole circle, as I mentioned, everybody was playing soccer. That was the main thing. That was really my purpose, my goal. So I think that I would have did everything in my power to try and become a professional footballer. But look, like I said, because I've always been curious and I've always been ambitious and I've always had that since a young child, I think that like I probably would have got into some business anyway. But it just happened to be that, you know, financial literacy and Black Wealth Connect was birthed, and that's where my journey took me to. But don't get it twisted, I was in the process of trying to figure out where my purpose was after soccer. You know, it was difficult because even though I got into banking, I was still trying to find my purpose. It took me a very long time to try and find my purpose, you know, like...
So 20 years you started, at what point did you realize that, okay, there's something in here for me?
In terms of
finance,
I think it's just something clicked. You know, sometimes in life things click, and then when they click, it's like you start thinking. So I think it just got to a stage where I'm just like, okay, this makes sense. And I've always been somebody that likes to also talk to people and communicate, and you know, and so I felt as though that once that thing clicked and I started connecting all the dots with the Jessies, the Ikes, and all these things, and built the podcast. Over time, that's when I started realizing, okay, you know what? Let me try and make this something that can help people, but at the same time, you know, create an impact, you know. So that's where ultimately I just discovered my purpose. But to your point, it was just I was always going to be some type of business thing. Yeah.
Football and then business.
Yeah, football business, because my father, you know, was a business person, and football, so I always knew it was either going to be one of those two. Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So you weren't thinking of the engineer or whatever.
Hell no. Oh, I didn't even like school. Man. Like, I'm telling you right now, you know, I'm gonna be honest. I did not like school at all. Like I was.
But you wanted to be a billionaire.
Yeah, I wanted to be a billionaire, but I knew being in this school was not gonna get me to where I wanted to. And I'm not trying to say people stay in school. I'm not trying to say that finish, graduate, and all that. But I think there's just a bigger purpose after school. I think like these fundamentals and these life tools and things that we use in our everyday life, not all of them are taught in school. You know?
Of course. Of course. I feel like school prepares you formally, but there's so much life skills that you learn.
Yeah, outside.
Yeah, outside of school.
100%. Yeah, for sure. So.
Wow.
Yeah,
I've never heard. This is the first.
Yeah, what?
Footballer.
A footballer? Yeah.
But it looked like it. Yeah. You look like it.
Yeah, trust me, I've been told a few times I look like some footballers, but yeah, that's ultimately where my life would have went to. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
If you met young Fabrice, what would you tell young Fabrice?
So the stuff that I know now?
Yes. If you met young Fabrice, knowing what you know now, it's current Fabrice, what would you tell, say, 10-year-old young Fabrice? And then the next question is also looking ahead. If you meet older Fabrice in the next 15 to 20 years, where would you hope older Fabrice would be? What kind of life would you hope?
I think about the first one a lot. I don't think about the second one. But I will. No, amazing. The first. Okay, so to the first point, if I was to go, like with the stuff that I know now, I will always say that I would have helped my parents a lot more. That's something that's one of my regrets.
In what way?
So just being able to give them the financial skills that I know now. If I wish I knew this stuff when I was in the 20s, because like for my parents to acquire property and do all these things, we didn't really know too much about that stuff. You know, they could have owned, you know, when we go back, like our parents could have owned so many properties in Sydney. They made a lot of money. Yeah, do you know, they're hard workers. Exactly to my point. I feel, but the only thing that they needed was information.
Ooh.
Do you know what I mean? So that's one of my biggest regrets, man. Like, you know, it lives with me until now, because like seeing the way like my mom is now and stuff, not to say that she's in a bad position, but I felt as though they could have been retired. They could have done things a long time ago, and the skills that I know now would have been able to get them in a position where right now they wouldn't have had to worry about anything. So that's one of the things. That's financial literacy, right?
I think your mom saw this, and that's why she pushed you into banking. Do you think she saw something in you?
I think our parents always see something in their kids. Like I think they always see something like that. You know, if the fact that I already played soccer and she could see my discipline and how passionate I was about that, I think she thought that anything that she would have pushed me into, I would have been passionate. I would have taken the same ability there. But if I was to, so the second question was if I was older.
Yes, if you met 20, Fabrice in 15 to 20 years, where would you hope you would be? What would you want Fabrice to look like? What would you want Fabrice to be doing?
Well, I think I'll in 15 years, I would hope that, you know, I am at a point in my life where I'm okay to retire. You know, I'm okay to just enjoy my life at that stage and not have to worry about too much. But still, the main thing I also hope is that I'm still able to give back. That's the main thing, because obviously, like, I want to have built a system that can last up until that point, and hopefully something like a Black Wealth Connect can still impact and change people's lives. That's what I would ultimately hope for. financially free,
Yeah.
but also be able to give back, because I feel like, but just give me more time to give back, because obviously, you know, when you're working, you're doing a lot of different things, you don't have that time. So yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Fabrice. I've enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Nah, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and good luck to this amazing journey that you're taking.
Thank you so much.
You know,
Is your podcast still?
Yeah, my podcast. So it'll come back next year.
Okay.
Black Wealth Connect
Black
podcast.
Wealth,
I've
okay.
shot so many different episodes and stuff, but it's just obviously just going through the transition of the summit and building that and all that. But definitely, you know, one person can't do a billion things, but I'm hoping I'm definitely building a system and an infrastructure in place that will give me the time to go back and do it full time.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So we can follow Black Wealth Connect on YouTube.
Yeah, Black Wealth Connect. So just Black Wealth. You can just type Black Wealth Connect everywhere. YouTube, you know, Google, whatever, LinkedIn. It's all the same, and easy to find.
Sweet.
But that Black Wealth Connect, BLK.
BLK.
So the black is spelled BLK, Wealth Connect. Yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
And how can people connect with you directly as well?
Just, you know, you can reach out to me personally on my Instagram. So Fabrice Omankoy. So that's FABRICE. And then Omankoy, OMANKOY. I'm very easy to find both on Instagram and LinkedIn.
And he's a very nice guy. He will respond very sweet.
I will respond. And I will just say one thing before we wrap up. It's very important when people reach out in life, and if you're in a position to help people or you're in a position to give back, I think you should always give people time. It's very, very important, because you don't know what you might learn from those people. And I think sometimes in life when people get to a certain stage, they tend to think that, like, if somebody reaches out to them that, you know, like, oh, I'm too busy, but I just don't think you should be too busy to give back to people. Even though your calendar might be quite busy, always just look for that gap and just be like, hey, can you come and we talk at this time? So I always think it's important to always find time for people. Yeah.
And I appreciate that about you. And 2 people said that about you.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just one person. Because before I reached out, I was like, Fabrice is a big guy. He's very busy. Found off. I don't know whether he's even going to look at me or give me the space.
I would never
but
do
then
that.
Peter and Derek said the exact same thing.
Never do that.
And I think I told you that.
Yeah, you did tell me that. Shout out to Peter and Derek. But that's one thing I've learned in life, because we all weren't in a position at some stage to help people, and I think that, like, that's just one thing I want to make clear. Always find time for people. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for sticking with us and joining us. I hope you've learned so much. I have learned so much from this conversation. I wish it did not end, but Fabrice is coming back. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share. I will catch you same time next week. It's bye for now. I am your host, Nana Abnecha. Thanks for joining.